couple years ago, I worked at this 24-hour diner. Sometimes I worked the night shift. One day, I was at Walmart after an afternoon shift I worked in my painfully recognizable uniform. The guy in front of me had these crazy eyes and was taking his sweet time bagging up his groceries, and he said hi, so I said hi back. He was like, "Oh, so you work at..." And I was like, "Yep." He left the store and I bagged my groceries and walked out a couple minutes later. Well, the guy was outside and saw me get in my car. He didn't follow me though, or so I thought, and that was that. So fast forward 2 weeks. I'm working the night shift and it's 2 a.m. I was sitting outside, smoking a cigarette and talking on the phone. This white van pulls up, and guess who hops out? He was like, "Hey girl, I've been looking for you. You remember me? Do you?" His eyes were bugging out of his head. He had a few of his buddies in his van. I stuck the phone in my pocket. He grabbed my wrist and started pulling me to the van and says, "Oh, come hang out with us." I was like, "Fuck no, dude." I yanked away and started backing towards the door, and he kept asking if he could at least get my number. I just ran inside to the back and told my almost 7-foot-tall coworker about the situation, but they drove off. 2 nights later, one of the windows was shot out with a BB gun during a night shift that I wasn't working. But my coworker said that it was a bunch of dudes who drove by in a white van. I live in South Georgia, so things here can be really shady. I go to this Walmart all the time, and I've never had problems with it whatsoever. I'm a 21-year-old male, so it's kind of weird that I was followed anyways, but here we go. I went shopping for some groceries, doing my usual thing. It was around 8:30 p.m. by the time I had got done checking out. As I was walking out of the store, I noticed this older gentleman staring at me, all creepy-like. I just brushed it off until I noticed he was out in the parking lot, staring as I was putting my groceries in my car. I decided to hurry up the pace. I can defend myself. I'm a pretty muscular guy, but I don't like violence that much. I got in my car, started to drive away, and I thought that was that. I get about a mile down the road when this black pickup starts riding my bumper. I slowed down and went off the road a little to let him pass. He didn't. He kept pace. I finally brake checked him, and he passed, but as he was doing that, I noticed it was the same old man. When he passed me, he brake checked me and tried to make me stop my car. This went on for 10 minutes until I got very aggravated, passed him, and sped off. I finally get home, go inside, and start to chill out when my Ring camera goes off. I looked at the video from my phone, and this dude was on my porch. I called the cops. They came, but he was gone, so there was nothing they could do. This happened last night. I'm very creeped out about the experience, so I thought I'd share. I used to work at one of those 24/7 Walmart supercenters. I was right out of high school, a 19-year-old female, and worked as a cashier for 2 terrible years, where I was subjected to all kinds of abuse, from customers and coworkers alike. I mean, I was screamed at, slammed into a register face first, groped, and even farted on once because this old lady was mad that oranges were priced each and not by the pound. However, the time that sticks out in my head the most is the time a customer tried to follow me home. I had just started my shift, and the second I got on the register, I had a line about 10 people long. For some reason, the Walmart I worked at never had enough registers open, so people were usually really mad and impatient by the time they got to me. I get right to work and keep a smile plastered on my face while making the minimal mandatory small talk. Most customers were polite, but not very interested in talking, so it's easy to fall in a bit of cashier robot mode. I get to this guy who only had 2 items, yogurt and Band-Aids. I ring it all up in record time and neatly bag it up, but the customer doesn't seem to be paying any attention. He wouldn't look at me or answer my greeting. His eyes just stared right down at the conveyor belt. Maybe he was a bit zoned out. The conveyor belt didn't look too dirty. I hadn't had a chance to wash it yet because the second I walked over to the register, people lined up. I tell the man his total, which was something like $4.36, and he starts fishing in his pockets for exact change without looking up. Inwardly, I groan, but keep my customer service smile fixed into place while I wait. He is wearing one of those muddy brown denim jackets with lots of pockets, and as he rifles through, I keep catching whiffs of stale BO and cigarettes. His hands were pretty dirty too, and all dried out from the cold weather. He dumps out an assortment of change on the counter, still not looking at me, and I begin to count it up. Everything is uncomfortably quiet, and I can feel the eyes of every customer waiting in line boring into me, all except the guy who was then digging into his pants pockets too. He was about 30 cents short. I let him know once I was sure he wasn't going to find any more coins. It was then that he looks at me, making this scrunched up face. His eyes were very dark brown, almost black, and they were piercing into me, accusingly as if he thought I was lying or something. While he watched, I counted everything again. "It's only 30 cents. Can't you just give me your employee discount?" "No, that's against the rules," I answered, apologetically. "Want to put something back?" I wasn't about to get fired for giving someone my discount. He wasn't the first person to ask for it, but most people pretended they were joking. He was not joking. "No, I want them," he said, glaring at me. I was beginning to wish he'd start staring at the conveyor belt again, instead of me. He was making me pretty uncomfortable. If I'd had 30 cents in my pocket, I would have paid it up myself just to get this guy to leave. He reaches over to take the bag, but I turn the little bag carousel so that he can't. That was probably a stupid move on my part, but it wasn't like I could let him steal, right? If my register was short 30 cents, my supervisors would be all over me. "I know you get a discount. Just plug it in." He completely blows up at this point, but I just shake my head and look at the other customers. People are watching, but no one does anything. This is just something that's inconveniencing them, even though I'm actually pretty scared. I'd already started flashing my register light so that the CSM would come, but they are notorious for taking their sweet time. "I'll get a CSM, but it might take a few minutes," I nervously offer, but the man goes off and goes on about how it's not that much and he needs it. He leaves before a supervisor comes over, grabbing all of his change and shoving it all into one pocket before stomping off. I'm relieved that he's gone and continue working in uneasy silence. Everything seemed to go on as normal after that. My shift ends at midnight and I managed to clock out on time for once. I didn't have a car and would normally call my mom to come pick me up, but she was out of town and it was too late to call anyone else, so I decided to walk rather than waste money on a cab. I lived about 20 minutes away and felt pretty safe walking because you didn't really tend to run into any other pedestrians at that hour. After a few minutes of walking, I noticed a car was driving really slowly behind me. The speed limit was 45 miles per hour, and this car was probably going about 10. I got a bad gut feeling and walked a little faster while trying to rationalize it. It could have been someone who wanted to offer me a ride or get directions. But no, whoever it was stayed behind me and did not try to pull up next to me at all, even though we were going really slow. After about 5 minutes of this, the car finally turns off into one of the neighborhoods. I was relieved, but it was short-lived. The driver parks his car on the curb and gets out of his car, then comes jogging up to me. I realize immediately that it was Yogurt Band-Aid guy. He's wearing the same exact muddy brown jacket and is staring at me with those dark eyes. I turn around and start jogging down the sidewalk, and he just jogs up right next to me. I can actually hear the change jiggling in his pocket. He doesn't say anything at first, so I just try to run faster without slipping. Had this guy been sitting in the parking lot for hours waiting for me to get off work? Apparently so. I feel him staring at me and turn my head to look at him while still running as fast as I can on the ice. "What color is your underwear?" he asks. This question horrified me and disgusted me, so my immediate reaction was, "Don't be a creep." and I punched him right in the face. It hurt my hand like a bitch, but he stops running for a second and bends over a bit, clutching his face. I swear I heard him say okay, but I just kept running, and I'm too scared to look back. I'm not sure if he kept following me after that, but I didn't run straight home because I was scared of him figuring out where I lived. When I did make it home, probably an hour later, I went to my landlady's apartment first and told her what happened. I was really shaken up, and I told her that if she saw a suspicious guy around the building, she should call the police. My mom was out of town, and she didn't answer my calls, so I watched Disney movies until I was calm enough to go to sleep. The next day, I told my managers at work what happened, but they didn't care. In hindsight, I probably should have called the police, but I was young and thought that if it was necessary, management would have told me to do it. I felt pretty angry that they didn't take me seriously or care that I was scared. I wanted to go home early because I was scared that the guy would show up again, but they told me no and made me go work the registers. I quit shortly after that. I never did see Yogurt Band-Aid guy again, but it's been about 10 years and I'm not even sure I'd recognize him even if I did. Even so, Yogurt Band-Aid guy, let's never meet again. My sister and I needed to go to Walmart to pick our mom up some groceries. We were in the freezer aisle when I looked up and noticed a man staring at me. Me being me, I said, "That man must think I'm cute because he won't quit staring at me." We didn't think much else of it. We continued our shopping when I noticed him staring at me again, this time in a different aisle. I was starting to get creeped out. I told my sister maybe we should try going into a completely different part of the store. We went into women's clothing. He followed. Electronics. He followed. Realizing how scary this was, we decided to hurry up and check out and leave. We were relieved when we didn't see him as we were checking out. We were headed for the doors and the coast was clear. I turned my head right as we were exiting the store, and there he was. He came out of the bathroom, right in front of where we checked out at. I knew he saw me, so we hurried up to go to the car and put our groceries away. Of course, his vehicle was parked a few spots away from ours. We just sat in the car with doors locked. We eventually decided to leave, and when we did, he began backing out as well. He was obviously following us. We parked in a different spot. Sure enough, so did he. I told my sister we should cut through one of the parking lots to get to the main road a different way. Luckily, this man got stuck behind a line in traffic waiting to leave Walmart as we were hurrying away. I'm not sure what his true intentions were, but I was later told how popular sex trafficking was in that area. So, creepy Walmart stalker, let's not meet, ever, again. I'm a 17-year-old girl, and a few weeks ago, I was in Walmart with my grandma. We were walking around and shopping and stuff. Your normal Saturday morning errand run. While walking around, I had begun to notice an older man, late 30s, early to mid 40s, in a few of these same aisles as my gram and I. I thought nothing of it since it's a Walmart and it's not that big of a store. At one point, my grandma asked me if I needed any new bras. I told her yeah, and we went to the ladies' underwear section of the store. My grandma went to look at the bras, and I went to go see if they had any matching underwear when I noticed the man again. I was minding my own business when I heard someone walk behind me. I figured it was my gram, so I partly turned to ask how many pairs I could get, but she wasn't behind me. I looked around and saw the guy at the end of the aisle. Whatever, I thought to myself. Maybe he has a wife or a girlfriend, and I went back into my own little world, looking for underwear. I looked for another minute or so when I felt a presence behind me. I looked to my left and saw a little bit of my grandma looking at nightgowns. I decided to stare straight ahead since maybe someone taller than me was just looking at the underwear that was over my head. I'm 5'1". I felt someone kind of press against me. Then I heard the breathing. It was heavy breathing, like someone had just had sex or something and was calming down. I turned on my heels to see the guy who had been following me with his hand down his pants, obviously fondling himself. I literally screamed, "Nanny!" and the guy sprinted away. I told Walmart security, and they told me they had no authority to do anything about it. I can't get the sound of that guy breathing out of my head. For some background, I'm a 5'3" female. I used to have my hair colored in bright colors. At the time of the story, it was bright blue, and at the time of these two incidences, I was in my early 20s. I live in the central part of Texas, born and raised here. It was a little after I'd first gotten my driver's license when my mom had asked me to run to Walmart in order to pick up some groceries for dinner. I figured, sure, why not? Plus I had just gotten paid. Maybe I could buy something for myself as well. Now, usually when I go shopping anywhere, I always have my phone and headphones with me so I can listen to music while I shop. This day, however, I left my phone at home on its charger. Sucks, but whatever. I wasn't going to take long to get what I needed. As I'm walking through the store, grabbing dinner, I start realizing something was off. I couldn't really understand why, but I started feeling like I was being followed. I looked around me as discreetly as I could and didn't really notice anyone. A few families, some college kids, and then this one guy in a dirty wife beater. I shrugged it off and figured I was just being paranoid, so I continued on my way. But every so often, I'd get that feeling of being watched, so I'd keep looking around and never saw anything weird. Except, on my journey into the third aisle, I noticed the guy in the dirty wife beater again. He was some older white guy, maybe mid to late 40s. He had short orange blonde hair, a bit of facial scruff, and some sort of facial tic. He looked a little off with his standing and staring. He didn't even have a shopping cart from what I remember, and he just stared at me. I turned back around and figured maybe I was blocking his path. I grabbed my cart and started wandering over where the art supplies were, since I needed a new sketchbook. I could still feel him following me the entire time. At that point, I started getting a little freaked out. I'd never had this happen before, so then I decided I'd try losing him by going through different aisles. At first it worked, and I decided now would be the time to leave, so I head up to the cashier, pay for everything, and make my way out. Then, I suddenly hear someone behind me call out, "Don't leave yet, baby." I looked back behind me because I knew that comment was directed at me, and lo and behold, it was the guy in the dirty wife beater. I just ignored him and booked out of the store. As I make my way to the car though, I keep hearing him behind me saying things like, "Come back," and "I'm talking to you." Thankfully, I managed to get everything in the car and book it out of the parking lot before he got to me. I was shaking by the time I got home. I thought about telling my parents about what happened, but decided not to. I figured it was a one-off thing. Boy, was I wrong. About a few months later, my mom and one of my older sisters went to the same Walmart to do some more grocery shopping. I told no one about the incident from months prior, but I did gain a tendency to carry a pocket knife with me at all times afterwards, just for added safety. So we're walking in, talking about something dumb or about whatever we were supposed to get. I can't remember. When all of a sudden, I looked ahead of us and just froze in my steps. Right in front of us was Mr. Dirty Wife Beater, still looking grungy as all hell and looking straight at me. Mom and my sister had noticed my sudden lack of movement when this guy walks closer, never looking elsewhere besides my face, and starts rambling about my colored hair. "Why did you change your hair? Is it to get men to look at you? 'Cause I'm looking." Those are the words that are still ingrained into my brain. My mom looked at him confused, same with my sister. I was still shocked and tense with just how uncomfortable I was and how scared I felt. I didn't really know what to do. Thankfully, maybe due to my fear, I managed to start power walking ahead of my mom and sister while this guy just kept talking. When I stopped in the baking aisle, my mom and sister asked me what that was all about. I finally told them, and Mom started getting concerned, asking me if maybe I should get security involved. For some reason, maybe my anxiety, I decided not to get security involved. I did end up the entire trip looking over my shoulders constantly to make sure we didn't get followed out to the car. So yeah, crazy and or possibly doped up guy in a wife beater. Let's not meet. This was 14 years ago. I was 19 and had just moved into my first real house with roommates that I picked. We decided to head to Walmart to pick up some house things and whatnot. 6 of us go. It was myself plus 4 roommates and one roommate's boyfriend. We'll call him Daniel. We head to Walmart in my '89 Bronco 2 Jesus. We get there and start shopping in a perfectly normal fashion. I mean, we're being loud and obnoxious young adults, but that stuff's normal. Now, for this story's sake, I need to let you know that I am a talker. I talk to everyone. I compliment strangers, say hello if we make eye contact while walking, that sort of thing. I will not say that I do not know a stranger, because I'm terribly shy when I'm alone. But when in a group, I'm very outgoing and friendly. That was my mistake this evening. We're 2 aisles in, and we pass this dude. Probably our age, but one can never tell. As I glance up, we make eye contact, so I feel obliged to say, "Hiya," and we all go about our merry way. Only, he went our merry way. We are in the store for a solid 45 minutes, haven't even gotten halfway through, and he crosses our path again. He walks up to me with his head down, sticks his hand out, and says, "Here," and then rushes away. It's his phone number. Aw, man, that's super sweet. I feel bad having no intention of calling him, but it was a sweet gesture, or so I thought. It has now been the better part of 2 hours, going down every aisle, discussing as adults what we do or don't need. And then we cross his path again. He stops in the middle of the aisle and just stares us down as we pass. I'm a little weirded out, and so is Daniel. Daniel then grabs my hand and starts acting like my boyfriend. The guy then proceeds to follow us throughout the remainder of our journey. We get to the checkout. There are 5 girls, each with a full cart, and we see him 4 lanes away checking out with a soda. Daniel is getting uneasy and pissed off, so he grabs my waist and loudly shouts, "Let's go, babe," or some silly stuff like that, and we all walk out. He walks out with us. We get to my car and begin loading things. This guy goes to his car and just sits there, staring at us. Daniel is now standing near the back of the car with a rubber mallet, just smacking it into his hand like he's a freaking mobster or something, thinking this would make the guy leave. It did not. We finish loading and pile in to head out. I turn my vehicle on and the dude's vehicle starts as well. I pull out and head home normally, until Daniel says, "Don't go home. Drive to the police station or firehouse or something. That fucking guy has been following us since we left Walmart." All 5 of the 19-year-old girls he is in the car with start freaking out. This dude stays with us until we turn into a fire station. We sat in the parking lot for a good 20 to 30 minutes, looking to see if he drives back by. He doesn't, and we head home. This event is why I have not been back into a Walmart for 14 years. I still talk to random strangers though. I can't help it. I really like people. So, to the creepy Walmart guy, let's not meet again.